Hey everyone, this is Cool Daddy Anime, and today I'm going to pose the question, is Wuthering Waves in Kuro games too generous? If you've been playing since the game was first launched in May, then you are well aware of the trouble Kuro had with Wuthering Waves. There was optimization issues, translation problems with a weapon, server issues, and even a security breach with an email meant for internal use. Overall, it was one issue after the next, and although it was frustrating for a number of players, Kuro saw it fit to compensate them for all of the trouble. They dropped Astrite, several instances of Radiant Tide, millions of shell credits, and even a 5-star selector for all the problems that were going on. The players appreciated the generosity, but it started to bring up the question, is Kuro Games being too generous? Especially if this is ultimately affecting the bottom line, which I give a resounding maybe. Short-term losses for long-term gain. I'll explain. Before I get to my point, I want to talk about a movie from my past. A cult classic which a lot of folks can remember, Half-Baked, starring a young Dave Chappelle. In the movie, they were able to procure a large amount of product which they needed to sell in order to raise money to bail their friend out of prison. What kind of product, you ask? Well, it's the kind that a lot of people like to indulge in around April 20th every year. If you don't know what I mean, simply search 420 and you'll see. Anyway, since they were fairly new to this kind of business and needed to establish a clientele base, they came up with the idea to create a bunch of samples to allow potential customers to enjoy their product at no upfront cost. They were worried this wouldn't get the desired results, but lo and behold, it works. Their phones are ringing off the hook, and before you know it, business is a booming. The money starts to flow in. So why am I referencing a movie from the late 90s? Well, what they were doing is a concept of sampling, which is parallel to what Kuro is doing at the start of their newly released game. Of course, they are a good developer and want to satisfy their player base. Now, in the movie, the characters lost money initially because they gave away a bit of their product for free. However, what they were counting on was the hit that it provided for the product they sold. Now in a gacha game, they too are hoping for another kind of hit. It's called dopamine. That little chemical reaction in your brain that you get when you accomplish something or are pleasantly surprised. Now Kuro probably cost themselves millions of dollars from all their giveaways, but of course, it's a calculated risk. Like with the movie, giving away free samples didn't guarantee their success, but they were counting on the addiction that comes from the hit from their products. And in a gacha game, getting that first shiny 5-star is the hit. So with that being said, a wise man once told me when I first decided to gamble was, the worst thing that can happen to a first-time gambler is they win. Seems harsh, but it makes sense. Just hear me out. Let's take you back in time to a young Cool Daddy anime. I decided to play blackjack, and during my time at the table, I lost all the money I had in my pockets. Granted, it was about $30 at the time, but to a broke college kid, that was a lot of money. It sucked because I really couldn't enjoy my time with my friends, and I was annoyed with everything for the rest of the night. However, with this disappointment brought me a resounding respect in the concept of losing my money all willy-nilly, and it taught me to be ready to lose that money if things don't go my way. Now my dad told me, had I won, it would have been worse. The dopamine hit I would have gotten from the win would have led me to believe that this is normal and that I should expect to win at the table anytime. This kind of excitement can lead to the nasty losses you hear or read about, and unfortunately, some of these stories have tragic endings. Now, in a gacha game, they are expecting you to pull, of course, and eventually, you'll get that shiny 5-star, and at first, you will be happy, especially since you didn't have to pay for it. Kuro is just so generous, and because of that generosity, you may venture into the limited banners with your free pulls, ready to get that special character that everyone has been talking about. But that first roll doesn't go as planned. Then you get to the next, and the next. Before you know it, you hit pity, and maybe you luck out and win that 50-50. But we all know that isn't always the case. And that dopamine hit doesn't quite work out because it wasn't the character you wanted. Now comes to a big decision. Do you keep going to get that character or save your pulls for another time? You now have the taste. Now, because the game is fairly new, you'll still have plenty of world to explore and chests to open, events to finish, and missions to accomplish. You'll be able to save up to finally get that character you wanted, and that dopamine hit that you really wanted is finally there. However, eventually the generosity from Kuro is going to end. Sure, they'll continue their hot fixes, which will net us some astrite, and they're always going to give away a free temple during patches. But the big fixes are gone. There won't be a reason to give away another 5-star selector. Additionally, the world will begin to dry up with chests and quests, but you'll still want to pull on the convene in order to get that new 5-star. Now, if you're really disciplined, you can make those free pulls last a long time, but eventually they will run out, and the pulls will be hard to come by without spending a bit of cash. Initially, the 30-day pass, $5, not a big issue. Soon, the battle pass, $10. Alright, not too bad. And eventually, when all the pulls are done, but you still want that dopamine hit, you'll pull out the credit card and start topping off. They got you. The initial loss will begin to earn dividends, and the initial player base that was getting all these free pulls are now spending some sort of money on the game. Like I said, short-term loss, long-term gain. So what does this mean going forward? Well, I'm just putting things into perspective when it comes to the generosity of a gacha developer such as Kuro Games. Although they have created a fantastic game that I personally don't mind supporting, you must understand that the best gacha game developer in the world is still a gacha game developer. And first and foremost, their job is to get money from your wallet into their accounts. And our job as players is to vote with our wallet and time on the game. If you choose to indulge on the gacha mechanics, please do so responsibly and understand that the money you put into these games is never coming back. Be ready to accept those losses as you enjoy the game. If you can't afford it, please don't spend. If you can afford it and you have to spend, I suggest at least budgeting for this loss. And if you're a whale, I get it, you're going to do whatever you want, but I would suggest budgeting the thousands you throw into the game. Gacha games can be enjoyable, but they can lead down a very dark path if you aren't careful. We've all heard reports of family losing hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars on these games. People losing their homes and relationship because the impulse to spend was too great. I never worry if a company is too generous with their product when the product they're ultimately selling is an addiction. Thanks everyone for watching my video. If you like what you saw, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.